I think that the whole notion of artificial general intelligence is a red herring because people already think, I'm sorry, machines already think, and they don't think like people do. And it's really about cognitive reinforcement. And I'll uh, speak to that. Why do I say AGI is a red herring? First of all, machines already think. They are able to look at their environment, make decisions, take action, and adjust. And I think that's one definition of thinking. And they can talk to other machines, they can talk to people, and that large language models are already general. If you look at the performance of large language models, it's actually the big frontier models that are still both deep and broad. They can do medicine, they can do physics, they can do mathematics, and the specialized models have not yet caught up. So it's certainly general. And the other reason I think that there's such curiosity about artificial general intelligence is that all of our technology myths throughout history are bad. If you think back to Prometheus being chained to the rock for sharing fire with man, if you think about Icarus and his son flying too close to the sun, if you think about Frankenstein, if you think about Terminator, the myths in the Western tradition about technology are all bad. So I think there's a fascination about artificial general intelligence. But the problem is that it has nothing to do with human consciousness. If you look at something like the placebo effect for drugs, for example, which is we believe something's going to, help us even in a double-blind study, the placebo effect can be 50% or more of a drug effect. We have no idea how the placebo effect works, where it sits in the body, where it sits in the mind. That's part of consciousness. We really, the people who say that machines are just like people are extreme materialists and they're not factual. So how should we think about it? The way we should think about it is that we already have a thinking partner in machines, and there are two schools of thought at the macro level of how to think about this and why it's relevant for organizations to forget about AGI and think about thinking with machines. The man on the upper left here is Frederick Taylor. He is the father of scientific management, and the person below him is Doug Engelbart. Doug Engelbart is the Isaac Newton of the personal computer revolution. He was at the Augmented Knowledge Workshop at Rand. He invented the computer mouse, and he was the most influential thinker to all the folks who built the PC. If you think about the nature of work, and if it goes from the individual or group, that is, how does the work get done? And then you look at the value added and the organizational power that that individual has. Historically, Tayloristic thinking, that is the one best way to do the work, is really dealing with the individuals and to people who have low organizational power, low relative value added, and they either work as an individual in a group. So call centers or car assembly. What's happening with a number of these things, these large language models, is that we're moving into the area that Doug Engelbart was interested in, which was his question was, how do we take a group of well-trained, accomplished people doing complex, interdependent, urgent work and improve their collective IQ? And what I would say to you is that if you look at the large language models, they have a role to play in both places. We can automate call centers. We can automate certain kinds of low-level activity that are either individual or group, programmatic stuff. But where the real value is going to be is in the creation of new kinds of work and capabilities in high value-added activities. Now, as we think about this, the unit of analysis is the cognitors, the people plus the machines. And in the low power individualistic work, we can use simple measures as productivity. How many calls per hour? How many contracts did you review? But as we move into more complex work, we're going to have to also include other measures of value, such as the attitude of the people doing the work, the behaviors, and then the inputs and the outcomes, because usually people with higher organizational power are not managed in terms of how they do the work. They're managed in terms of outputs, goals, and objectives. And so as we move into those areas, it's really about thinking that through. Now, these are some things that a friend of mine and I, Ben Kaczynski, wrote about in God forbid, 1991, where we talked about when you reapportion thinking responsibilities between people and machines, you will go from old roles of technology, that is recording transactions, filing results, and so forth, to more active roles, that's actively guiding and analyzing. Sound familiar? Creating greater scale of specificity and complexity, the ability to refine information into usable form. So when we start thinking about how we can reinvent work with groups of people who have more organizational power and analysis and capability. So I would recommend, as you think about the use of these tools, these large language models, generative AI, one is for Tayloristic work, that's traditional productivity, one for Engelbart work, which should include group analysis of attitude and behavior, as well as inputs and outputs. 2 units of analysis, the individual versus the group, and that group includes the machines, broader evaluation of results, and realizing we are entering a whole new world of work design as we get into higher value added, more group and complex work. Very good. That's the thought for 5 minutes today. Doug Engelbart versus Frederick Taylor.